Hello, everybody, and welcome to Music Industry Insights Worldwide. And today I have the amazing Amy with us. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Really well. Thank you so much for asking. And thank you again for taking the time out to share some of your views, the barriers, and the issues that you faced accessing the music and entertainment industries. So, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, I'll give you my whole spiel. So I'm Amy. I was originally born in Germany. So I'm from Germany. I'm German, but then I'm half Chinese and half Thai. But grew up in Germany, moved to London when I was like 17, studied there, and then came to the States. So in the US, I've lived across pretty much everywhere. I was in Chicago, Seattle, Boston, and now I'm based in New York. Yeah, that's a little bit of my life story.
That's a massive journey that you've taken, actually, and well done for sharing that. And well done for doing that and for sharing it with us. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you actually do now and your
Yeah.
role?
Yes, of course. So I've worked in the music industry for the past decade now, which is kind of intense to say. I had my start in music, in more corporate music. So I started at Warner Music, where I was on the promotions team. And then I came to the States, got a master's degree in music business, and then I sort of moved slowly into the music startup world. I was at Sofar Sounds, the live intimate gig company, for about 5, 6 years. And then now I am at Groover, which is a music tech platform that connects independent artists to music industry pros to get their music heard. So as you probably know, as an indie artist, it's really difficult to break through the noise and reach the right audience. And that's really the gap that Groover is trying to bridge. And I oversee the marketing team here.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you again. And do you want to tell us about your education? Did you have any musical background or education before you got into your job roles?
So not really. When I got my bachelor degree in London, but I got it in acting, which ended up being like fun for a little bit, but wasn't really the industry I wanted to be in. And I did get sort of lucky because through acting, I met a bunch of like music producers, a lot of people that worked in music, and I sort of accidentally slipped into the industry. But then as I started working for Warner Music, I realized that like I kind of want to get another degree just to sort of supplement my work experience. So then I got my master's degree in music business in the States. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. That's a massive achievement. So tell us a little bit more about the challenges and the barriers that you've actually faced coming into
Yeah.
the music and entertainment industry and obviously moving over and having those crossovers. How have you found that?
Yeah, that's a really big question. I think so. I do think the music industry can be kind of cutthroat and a little bit crazy to get in. And I think when I had just started, I had this, I guess, like perception that you have to be super tough, you have to be really cold and rude to like get where you want to get to. And
Okay.
obviously now I don't at all feel that way. But the barriers to entry, I think, were a little bit hard at the time. And I also think that obviously like a lot has changed in the music industry even just in the past 10 years. Like we have a lot of like new startup companies that are disrupting that sort of like old ancient structure of the music industry, which is great to see. But when I started, it was very difficult. There's a lot of just, I think, a lot of free labor because, everyone's trying to get into the music industry. You're trying to do internships, you're volunteering, you're doing this and that, and you're just giving up your life to enter the industry. So that was probably the hardest sort of thing to get your foot in the door. And then I think over time, it was just being able to grow within the industry too.
Mm.
Um, yeah, for me, really, I loved being at Warner Music. I think it was an amazing first job in music. But I think I realized very quickly, like, oh, if I want to grow in my career, if I want to, just do bigger things, I likely will get stuck in an industry that's a little bit more ancient.
Yeah,
So yeah, does that answer your question?
it really does. And how have you found moving from country to country and the different kind of laws and techniques and the way it works? How have you found that?
Yeah, I think I decided to leave Germany because I felt like the industry in itself wasn't very innovative. Like all of the like amazing music startup companies came from either, somewhere else in Europe or like specifically the US. all of the music industry mostly lived in like the US at the time. And I mean,
Uh,
still, now, but at the time for me too. So moving countries was sort of a big step for me to also move up in my career. And I will say, I think in terms of entertainment industries and the music industries, I feel like there's way more opportunity over here. Even also in London too, I think there's just a little bit more space in also, the way that the government funds nonprofits, for example, or the arts, like it's a little bit different. So to me, it was sort of a big decision to make to get somewhere in my career. It was quite difficult, like definitely like a culture shock. I mean, when I moved to London, I was 17, so I was still like a little baby. I was like fresh out of high school, and that was kind of a massive step. And I think for me, so my mother tongue is German, but my well, German and Mandarin, but I learned English in school.
mm,
So building a life in a different country in a different language was kind of a huge challenge for me.
uh,
Yeah, and same in the US, like there was just a bit of a culture shock, like coming from Europe to the US. My first US city was Chicago, which
wow.
was like a beautiful big US city, but it was just a lot to handle at that time.
I love America. So I don't think we've told the listeners already where you're actually based at the moment. So where are you based at the moment?
I'm based in New York now, so
Yeah,
I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah. Yeah.
it's really where it's all happening at the moment. So New York's a great place to be. And how have you found that, obviously moving from Germany to America and obviously to the UK? Have you found that that's gone smoothly and it's really been beneficial? Has it helped? Has it been giving you taught you new skills and
Yeah.
technique?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I think anytime you make a big life change, you grow, right? Like whether it's moving countries, like even if you move to a different city, sometimes even if you move to a different apartment, you'll like change. So I definitely think it has helped me grow a lot, even though it has been uncomfortable. I think in terms of my career, it was probably the best thing I could have done. Really at the time, I don't regret at all like having ever left or making these choices. I think it was more difficult throughout the different moves to integrate myself a little bit more and like figure out the music industry, figure out where I have a place, if that makes sense, and like where I really belong. Because I think having come from Germany, it was already something I struggled with throughout my entire life, like not feeling like I belong and not really feeling like I have a space. And I think as I moved countries, the more I sort of found my people, the more I found my community within music, the more I found the jobs that also made sense for me and that made me feel like I belong. And that's really great, obviously, but it took a lot of yeah, it just took a lot out of me at some point. Yeah.
Imagine that. So kind of tell us a little bit more about the impact that's had on you and your career. So obviously it's made you feel like you didn't have a place and now you found a place. Do you find you found a meaning and a purpose through
Yeah.
music?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think music always gave me a purpose in life. However, I'm not actually a musician myself, so I was never really creative in that sense. Like I do other stuff creatively, but to me, music was always a thing that got me through the rough times. Like, whether it was a heartbreak when I was 16 or it was like a life change, and there's an album that just like defines that life change at that time or something. So music has always been sort of a crutch in my life to get through. And now to be able to work in the industry is really great because it is not just what I love, but it's also something where, I'm able to support independent artists in a way that I wasn't in the past. And it's like a give and take at the same time. But I think genuinely if this wouldn't be the industry, I don't think I would have made all these bold moves and, taken all these chances.
100%. And I thank you so much for just sharing some of these vulnerable stories that you do share with us. And I really appreciate that and your honesty. And what kind of thoughts and feelings do you have around equality, diversity, and inclusion? Do you think it's representative? Do you think we've got enough underrepresented voices and underrepresented groups? Do you think we could do more?
Of course we can do more. I think it's like, I think of course we can always do more. But I think, yeah, I do think I've seen the music industry change a lot in the past 10 years, not just with, like I said earlier, not just with like actual startup disruptors or anything. I think specifically also the landscape of music, the awareness of, leadership in the industry has changed for the better, but still at this point, I don't think there's enough diversity in the industry, whether it is gender, whether it is ethnicity. I think there's still not enough voices, specifically in leadership roles. And I think that is one thing that has such a big impact on the rest of the industry, because the people at the top, the people in leadership roles, are also the ones responsible, to build out their teams and to make sure that you kind of get rid of that systemic, issue that's happening in every industry, but specifically in music. So to me, I think that is, and even now in any role in any company that I go to, it's a conversation that people are having, which is wonderful. But I can tell you that when I started music, it wasn't like that. So I do think there's still a lot that can be done on a leadership level, but also just in terms of, the pay gap, which is still in every industry, but also specifically in music. And there's just a lot still that could be better.
Yeah. So what would you like to see improve or change in the next couple of years around the music and entertainment industries? What would be your main points that you would like to see?
Yeah, I think I touched upon that a little bit already. I think potentially just more awareness training and leadership, more conversations that are actually genuine and not just about like, tokenizing or something, there's nothing that gives me more of an ick than like a company that celebrates like Black History Month and then for the rest of the year doesn't pay attention to diversity. I think there's just so much that can be done like inherently within, again, leadership and companies where you can have these conversations. What I've seen work a lot specifically on the business side is when companies have like just internal DEI groups and internal, just like employee groups that can start the conversation and bring more voices to the table. And that I think is something that could, in an ideal world, is something that every company would do. So that's one big thing that I would love to see.
I love that too, actually. I think we need to see more of that. And I'd also like to see more, underrepresented groups being platformed and also having an opportunity in the music industry, because I think at the moment we do cater for the majority, especially with the major labels and most independents, they want to cater for the majority. But we've also got to think about all the other audiences that we're not actually serving at the moment. I think that we can boost growth and productivity as well across all of the sectors in the creative sector. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree. It's also, I think, about like actual real cultural representation. And, like if you have a team working on like a, I don't know, South Korean like release or so, it would be great to have some representation on that team. Or, there's a lot, I think, that could happen in the industry to actually get more diversity and voices in the room, and that cultural representation not to be that like surface level. I would love to see that.
I agree. And also, I was going to say, going back to your Warner days, have you always done marketing, or is that something that you've kind of evolved over time? Has it always been that kind of area that you've worked in?
Yeah, I initially started in marketing. Like I was super entry level when I started at Warner Music. I was a promotions coordinator, and then when I pivoted into startup, I actually moved more into the business and entrepreneurship sort of strategy role. So when I was at Sofar Sounds, I did essentially concert operations. So I was running the concert operations across the East Coast for a while, our strategy. And then I pivoted back into marketing in my last year there, where I was overseeing the marketing for the US. And I think for me, I really wanted to pivot back into marketing because there was something in marketing that is both strategic and creative at the same time. And I really like that. I like having days where like sometimes I'm buried in a spreadsheet, but then other days I'm like looking at different designs. So I love the push and pull of marketing that you can get on both sides. Yeah.
My master's degree, and I think it's super crucial, especially now in the music industry, right? I think a lot of the work is actually around the marketing and where you fit and how you reach that audience in a cost-effective and efficient way, right? So that's really what marketing's about, and understanding who you're serving. Do
Exactly.
you want to give any tips or hints to anyone listening on some marketing things that you could pick up on, or I know Groover does some great events as well, actually, some
Yeah.
networking events and some educational like tips or hints that people could do to kind of boost their followers or maybe reach the right audience.
Yeah, it's a big question. I think my number one tip usually is, especially for independent artists, is to build your brand first and like to understand who you are, what you stand for, to understand your own values, and then also have a good understanding of what kind of target audience you want to reach. Because it's sort of, for me, the foundation of building everything, like your music, your fan base. And I think as long as you know who you are and who you want to serve, you can then sort of, be more specific in your research. With your targeting, you can be more specific. You can reach out to the right blogs and media and like journalists to help you reach your audience. And I think once you have the foundations nailed down, it's a little bit easier to actually find the right community. And I also think you should take some time to build your real life community. It's such an old saying in music, but it's everything is your network, and it's so true. I've never found it to be more true, whether you're in the music business world or if you're an artist. Like, everyone knows everyone. Like, just be kind, be a good person, and build your community in real life too. So these are probably my like top two tips.
Great advice, thank you. And I also think it's about being authentic as well, and finding your tribe and making sure that you represent that tribe and try and give back as well.
And it will make you feel way more authentic too, right? Like you don't have to put on a face to, pretend anything. Like, your fans will love you for who you are, and you can be as authentic as you want. And that's when you really know you found your community and your fans, I think.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Amy. And do you think age and cultural differences have an impact on how much equality, diversity, inclusion we can actually achieve at the moment?
Yeah, 100%. I think I have this whole hope that like with the new generation things will change, but I think that's what every single generation has said. No, but I do think there's this idea of, specifically with Gen Z entering the workforce, there is a whole different level of awareness around any systemic like cultural issues. I think there is this huge wave that has been happening over the past years where awareness is huge, like being an ally is huge. There's so much, I feel like younger generations are also way more open to educating themselves when they don't understand something. And I'm not saying that obviously millennials and up don't do that, but I think there is a big wave in younger generations coming that is sort of flipping it upside down a little bit, which I love to see. And also just, I think with the cultural changes, like societal changes of like being more aware of diversity and equity and inclusion, that there is more hope in terms of getting that actually integrated into the workforce nowadays. So yeah, let's hope the age and cultural differences will show.
Please let it happen. I think we're making small steps in the right direction, but it does take time. So I'm always in it to win it. And I want to make sure that we do make that progress and we're not just, saying it for the sake of saying it. Because I think sometimes there is that lip service, isn't there?
I think so, yeah. And I think I've noticed this cultural difference, especially in the US too. There's a lot of the whole, like, there's a lot of saying and then not doing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I haven't been in the European workforce for a while, but it does feel like in America in particular, there's a lot of like showing that you care, or like saying that you're going to do something and then it doesn't actually happen. So I think I'm painfully aware of that now with all, whenever a company does something wrong and there's a big apology or something, and then it's all sort of, it doesn't feel very deep or genuine.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And I think that's part of it. And being in the music and entertainment industry, has that affected you personally in your mental health and the way you feel about yourself and how you operate?
Yeah, I think with age, it has changed. I think when I was young and entered the workforce in music, I was like so hungry. I was so ready. I didn't care how little I slept. I didn't care to take care of myself. I was just like overworking myself a bunch. And it definitely changed during COVID. Like, that was the moment where I realized like, okay, burnout is a real thing. If you love what you do, it is actually kind of a double-edged sword because it's hard. You get down the slippery slope where you'll end up working and you don't realize that you're working. So I definitely at some point, especially during COVID, just because it was also a rough time, I burnt out a little bit and I questioned myself and I was just like, is this really the industry I still want to be in? Is this really something that I feel like I want to put my heart and soul into still? Luckily the answer is yes, but it really took me, yes, it took me some time to sort of recover from the burnout. It took me some time to figure out how to best balance my like work and my life and like how to draw boundaries that I literally wasn't drawing like, 2 years ago. So now I feel like I'm in a better place in terms of like taking care of my own mental health and then also realizing that I have to take care of myself first before I can take care of others. So that has been a big learning for me.
I think for many of us, actually, we work in the music industry, not because we want to, because it's a passion of ours. And I think we're so dedicated to doing that and wanting to achieve the best that we want to
Yeah.
make sure we are putting in the best that we can put in, right? And I think sometimes that is the challenge. It's the issue that, okay, we've got to make sure that we're always doing what we can, but we also need to look after ourselves first. And we
Mhm.
can't always give to everyone else instead of giving to ourselves.
Exactly.
I've really
Exactly.
learned that. And I think there's a lot of early mornings and a lot of late nights, and then waking up from the next day and doing early mornings. So there
Mhm.
can be really some unsociable hours there. But I think, once you get used to it and you look after yourself and have that proper balance that you're talking about, really helps.
Yeah, if I could go back in time and tell myself this like 2, 3 years ago, I would do it because I think it really has changed my life and now also my relationship to the music industry because it's been able to like now I'm able to actually take a step back a little bit, still love what I do, still like be really passionate about indie artists and not be burnt out, which is really nice. But I also will say I think everyone in music, because they love it so much, they also become such a perfectionist because it's your, if you're a musician, that's your baby. If you work in the music industry, you care about the artists that you work with. Like, I think because everyone is also such a perfectionist in what they do, that is on top of everything even more to like carry.
Yeah, 100%. And also being from an underrepresented group, have you ever suffered from discrimination or stigma working in the music industry?
Yes, I have. I have in the past, in a handful of companies, whether it was like during internships or other jobs. Luckily, not any time in the past like 6, 7 years now. So it's been good, luckily. But I think that was what was so difficult when I lived in Germany too, sort of what I touched upon earlier. Like there is a level of just racism that, for example, in New York doesn't exist in the same way. And yeah, I have gotten comments even from like coworkers, like very like microaggressive like jokes or something. So it actually was really traumatizing at the time. But I think because I was still so young, I didn't even realize that it was yeah, what was happening. Like microaggressions wasn't even a word yet at the time. That was, yeah, that was out there. So that was a long time ago, but I have experienced it before. It has gotten way better since I moved to the US. Yeah.
Hear that as well. And I think, the more diverse the communities are that we work in and that we serve, the more open-minded we are. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being inclusive and diverse, is having
Mhm.
all these different voices that can share different views and viewpoints, but also
Mhm.
come to an agreement where we can work together and make that progress that we all need to see, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I sometimes still think back to those times and I realize like maybe I should have said something then. Well, obviously I was super young, but I wish I would have said something then. So someone would have realized that it wasn't okay to, make these jokes or like HR should have gotten involved. Someone should have done some leadership training at that time. But I do think it has changed over time. And for me personally, it has changed just because I mean, living in New York it's such a diverse city that there's everyone is represented here and everyone is very embracing their own culture. So I feel very much at home. And I also, Groover is a, Parisian company that is now expanding in the US. We're super global. The entire team is super diverse. So there's definitely that like whole, I felt like I found my spot where, my culture is being celebrated and not, being made fun of or, yeah.
That's really, really important as well, I think. And I think it's about feeling part of a community that also is not just your own specific gender or race, but also part of something that is a movement as a whole, right? And is working for the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Groover's great at doing that because I've been to a few of your events in London. So thank you for having me on that. And do you want to tell the listeners a little bit more about Groover, what you do at Groover, and how that can help indie artists as well?
Yes. I mean, like I briefly mentioned, Groover is a music platform that connects indie artists to music industry pros, really to get their music heard. I think for me, like I lead the marketing team. I'm on both the brand marketing side as well as the growth marketing side. So really it is just overseeing a lot of our channels with a great team that I have. Anything ranging from like organic social, paid social, to email, blog, and partnerships and events as well. So essentially every single marketing channel you can imagine is what me and my team are activating. But I think the reason why I fell in love with Groover was because after working so long in the music industry and after having served indie artists when I was at Sofar Sounds, I heard about this tool and I was like, oh, wait, this is a gap for indie artists. Like, even as an indie artist, if you are lucky enough to be signed to a label, if this is the path that you choose, even then you don't have the human like resources to help you with marketing campaigns and help you get your music heard. And when I stumbled across Groove, I was like, oh my God, this is a huge gap in the industry. Like, with like digital distribution, music is becoming so accessible. There's so much noise out there. And it is so incredibly hard if you're an indie artist and you don't have a budget to work with, to actually get your music out. So that's really where I fell for Groover, because I was like, fell in love with Groover, because I realized like, oh, this is a tool that an artist can use regardless of their budget. It is not a subscription service or anything, which you probably know. You just sign up on the website for free, and then you can just reach out to the right people based on all of the profile info you give, based on all of the tags that you put in there, and then our algorithm matches you with the right people. And then you reach out by like per like micropayment. So each curator you reach out to is like €2 or something, so a little over $2. And it's great because it just really works with anyone's budget, and then also has a huge impact because we're so targeted in the way that we're reaching the right curators for you. So yeah, obviously I'm super biased, but when I found out about this as like a tool that exists, I was like, oh my God, everyone needs to hear about this. Like, I told all my artist friends, and everyone was like, wow, I can't believe it. Like, I've been trying to Google people and like reach out to them and send 1,000 emails and never hear back. And that's the other great thing about Groover. You get feedback, like guaranteed feedback within 7 days. You will always hear back. And then if not, like, we also refund you the credits and you can reuse them. So it's a very low risk way for artists to find the audience and find the right people to cover them, which is really great, and like playlist them and stuff like that too.
Crucial because, you know, most major artists have that as the part of the record label, don't they? And
Exactly.
artists really suffer from not having a marketing department or not knowing their audience.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is
Yeah.
where
And
creativity comes in, right?
yeah, and then also like I understand like indie artists want to focus on the music, right? Like that's, again, that's your baby. It's two different parts of your brain when you're using one brain for the business side, one brain for the creative side. So I think what it really is that we want to make sure that we empower artists to just take their careers in their own hands without a big lift on their side, and like they can still focus on creating amazing music, but then also reaching someone after having released it.
At an affordable price. So if anyone wants to find out more about Groover, Amy, do you want to tell us where we can find Groover, or they want to contact me?
Yeah, you can find us on groover.co, so groover.co, and you can also follow us on Instagram. For all of the English speaking countries, it's groover.en, and then for our French account, it is groover.music. So please give us a follow, and you can also find me. You can see me all across the Groover accounts, so you can easily find my personal account as well. But yeah.
Thank you. And do you want to share any of your major wins and successes before we go? We've got another 5 minutes. So is there anything else you would like to share with us, major wins, successes, anything you've got coming up, any networking events people might want to attend, anything like that? Please feel free to share it.
Yeah, I think maybe not a personal success, but what has been really exciting with, I mean, also personal, what has been really exciting with Groover has been the expansion in the US. So me and the US team have been at a bunch of different conferences, have been like across, Music Biz, South by Southwest, like Indie Week, like all of these big, great conferences in the US. So it's been really, really cool to kind of get ourselves out there and meet people in person. The next conference we have coming up will be Mondo NYC, which is one of the biggest music tech conferences in New York as well. So if I have any New Yorkers here, then please come and say hi. It's always really, really fun to meet people in person and also at our Groover events. And yeah, I think for me, personal successes, I'm just happy I'm working in music and I'm loving it again. Honestly, that has been a bit of a battle in the past, 2 years or so. So I'm really excited to be somewhere where I feel sort of whole again. And yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that as well, because you deserve it. And your smile says it all.
It's the glow from the sun. It's not really my own glow.
Don't put it out. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you today, to hear some of your story. It's been so inspirational. I'm sure people are going to feel empowered. And I hope people learn something from this that they can take away. That will just plant a little seed and help them make the music industry a better place.
I hope so too. And also you can always find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find me under Amy Siripunyo, as well as on my Instagram too. It's just Ames and then an X behind it. Feel free to always reach out. I'm always happy to give people advice. If anyone needs a mentor, I'm happy to support with their careers as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And could you just spell your surname for us, just in case anyone wants?
Yes. Yeah, it's Siripunyo, so Siripunyo. Yeah, and then Amy, it's just AMY. Pretty easy.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm going to let you go. Make sure you have a lovely rest of your week and a great weekend. And
Thank
thank
you.
you. Speak to you again soon.
Of course, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Take care, Amy.
Bye.
Bye. Stop.